So I think the first order of business, brethren, is to give yourselves a pat on the back for managing to download the podcast. You've tamed the technology, whether you're listening on the Norfolk Provincial website or from the other places, wherever you get your podcasts. You've completed the first challenge. Hello, I'm Jono. For those of you who don't know me, I am the current worshipful master of Watton Lodge, number 7107, here in the province of Norfolk. So this isn't the first time that we've been adventurous with a podcast here in Norfolk. I know we've done a video podcast a few years back. There's also the Craftcast podcast from the United Grand Lodge of England, but this is our own. This is our own podcast just for us here in Norfolk. And we're going to be catching up with some of the people that make Freemasonry happen in our province. And we are starting off in style. We've laid out the red carpet, we've got out the nice biscuits, the ones with chocolate on, and we've all made sure that we're wearing our festival jewelry.
From the horse's mouth, the Norfolk Freemasonry podcast.
Of course, you probably guessed that our very first guest on the Norfolk Freemasonry podcast, the Right Worshipful Richard Butler. Welcome, sir.
Pleasure to be here.
Before we start, I want to give you the metaphorical comedy-sized scissors to officially launch the podcast and cut the ribbon, because you are our very first guest, of course.
It's with the greatest of pleasure I cut that ribbon for you. I hope that everyone listening will enjoy.
And it's a blue and it's a red ribbon as well.
Blue and a red. Well, one journey, one organisation.
So, for those people who haven't met you around the province, and I'm sure there can't be many, who is Richard Butler?
Oh, well, I'm a Norfolk boy, born and bred in the west of the county, flew the nest up to Birmingham when I was 19, then went off to university, worked out of the county until I was 23. No, I didn't. I worked out of the county until I was 32, and then came back, and I've been back ever since. I worked in local government, I worked for a private family, and I've worked for the Church of England. So, a varied career.
And now you find yourself as Provincial Grand Master.
I do. A shock to me as to everyone else.
So let's wind the clock back around 12 months. You were Assistant Provincial Grand Master, familiar face around the province. Did you expect to get the top job?
No, I didn't expect to get the Assistant Provincial Grand Master's job either. It's a role rather than a job. But it's there. I was responsible for membership and the blues and the university scheme. And out of the blue, I had a conversation with the Programme Master and an invitation letter followed. So I suppose it was half thought of, but a shock at the time.
Did you ever expect that it's a role that you'd end up doing when you first started in Freemasonry?
Oh, absolutely not. I started Freemasonry in Middlesbrough, in my mother lodge, called Old Paulet. I joined because my father-in-law invited me, and I had no connection at all with someone called a Grand Officer or a senior officer like a Provincial Grand Officer. It just wasn't in my sights or in my thoughts. I just enjoyed my masonry, which we all should.
Absolutely. You've answered the question, but I was going to ask you out of curiosity, how did you find out? Was it you said it was a letter.
For the appointment?
Yes.
Yes, I did. I work very late in my study. That's just the way I do it. And there was an email popped in, but it was there at 18:30, but I'd missed it. And so I opened it before I went to bed, and in it had an invitation from the Most Worshipful, the Grand Master, asking me if I'd accept the appointment of Provincial Grand Master for Norfolk and Most Excellent Grand Superintendent for Norfolk. So a bit of a shock, late at night. But I had the weekend to dwell on it because they wanted an answer by Monday.
Did you ever think maybe it wasn't the right role, or did you jump straight in and say yes?
No, I think it's been building up to it. I did the role as Assistant Provincial Grand Master for 4 years, so you're involved in the executive, as we call it. You're involved in the decision-making process and seeing the wider world. We knew that the Provincial Grand Master had tendered his resignation in May. He wanted to retire in January. And so, no, it was work towards, I suppose, with every experience I'd had within Freemasonry.
Now, Norfolk is just one area of Freemasonry across the country.
Yeah.
What are the aims of Norfolk, and what is it that we do differently here in the county, in the province?
Well, we do differently, but we do the same, because Masonry is controlled, managed and steered by the United Grand Lodge of England. And so the strategy for that organisation, as one organisation, but two parts, Craft and Royal Arch. And so the strategy that we're just developing locally is to grow our membership, to give our people fun, to remind people this is a hobby and we should get as much out of it as we put into it, But following the new strap lines that we work toward with integrity and service, and opening up, I suppose new for us in the way, is community engagement. What does community engagement mean? Well, for years, we've done charitable work, mostly giving money to assist small and medium-sized charities here within the province of Norfolk. But community engagement extends that and pushes lodges to say, what else can we do in our community? Because the members are key members of the community that they live in. We serve on village halls, broker church councils, school governors. The list is endless. So watch that community engagement space.
Is there anything that we do here in Norfolk that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, I am. We do quite a lot with our local charity, the Norfolk Freemasons Charity Fund, which supports what's called Teddies for Loving Care, getting Teddies into each of the 3 hospitals in the county, ensuring that those young people that come in and are a little bit nervous get a gift from us. We're also very good at supporting our members quietly through the Masonic Charitable Foundation, and just getting out and having fun with the blues. The blues in Norfolk has grown exponentially in what they do, and I'm really proud of that.
From the horse's mouth.
So as the head of Norfolk Freemasonry, what's top of your list? What do you hope to achieve? What's your big goal?
I'd like the province to grow to the numbers we were pre-COVID. COVID hit Masonry as it did other organisations, and our numbers dipped. I'd like them to grow so that we're strong again at about the 3,250 level. I'd certainly like to see 1 or 2 more new specialist lodges, and also give support to those lodges that are struggling. Not long after the war, we were an organisation with 26 lodges. We're now an organisation with 74 lodges. So we have to look strategically where we are and why we are, and what can we do to help those that are struggling.
I guess if, like me, you spend half your life on Facebook, then you can't help but have noticed the social media recruitment campaign. How's that working?
One of our successes, it's something that we borrowed from the province of Buckinghamshire, who've been very successful. We've got a small team of volunteers who develop the videos that need to go onto Facebook and Instagram and other such platforms. We've got a team of volunteers called ambassadors who speaks to everybody that asked to join. And last year, 2023, 601 men in this county asked to join Freemasonry or showed an interest. And there's a phasing out on the way when they don't believe in a supreme being, or it's probably too much money, or they can't give the time to it. And that got down to last year 151 additional men joining Masonry through that media campaign, which is just stunning.
It's very impressive.
But it mustn't replace the candidates which members in lodges find for themselves. They should be additional places. And we have to replace the deaths and the resignations as well as the growth. So although we had 151 extra last year, we ended the year just 15 up.
15.
Due to deaths and resignations.
Goodness.
And so our target is to reduce the resignations and increase the candidates.
From the horse's mouth, the Norfolk Freemasonry podcast.
So the potential candidates that are coming into us via social media, have you found that they differ in mindset to those coming in via the more traditional routes?
Experience tells us that the candidates that are coming in through social media have done more research on Freemasonry, what Freemasonry is, what they expect to get out of it. Because in the end, you've got to get something out of it. I get immense joy and fun out of it and love being in it, have done for years. And so these men new to it pick up more information than ever I had when my father-in-law said, "Do you fancy joining the Freemasons?" Yes, I said enthusiastically to please my father-in-law, and I've had 43 years of happy fun. But these chaps that are coming in are more critical of how they're going to spend their time and their money, and have thought it through with their partners, loved ones, before they get to the point where they ask their questions of our membership team.
Kind of leads us on to my next question, really. Freemasonry has a bit of a stigma of dark secrets, but it's changed and appears to be more open now. Is there still work to be done? Obviously, there's still work to be done.
Lots of work to be done. We went through the 50s and 60s and into the 70s as an organisation where we didn't answer questions nationally or locally, and we were seen as a secret society. Well, we're not a secret society. We're just a society that has a secret. The biggest secret is we have no secrets. And you can go on the Google and web and you can see all you want to see about Freemasonry. But the general public sometimes get waylaid by newspaper articles. And we don't have friends within the newspaper world because they're often having a go. A cheap jibe at us gets their copy into the newspaper. And a little while ago, 2 or 3 years ago, we had a campaign which was enough is enough. And we answered those questions, and we still do. And only last week, our senior Mason for the United Kingdom reminded us all that we'd had enough. And yet again, 2 newspapers were bringing up silly, mythical ideas about Freemasonry. But we talk to people. We've come out of the shadows, and so we should. We're a community engagement organisation that does a lot of good locally, regionally and nationally. The thought at the moment is that Freemasons should register that they are members. Why? I was a Rotarian for 35 years. I was never asked to be even considered to register as a Rotarian. I've been a scout since I was 8. I don't have to register to be a scout leader in the movement. Why should you register to be a Freemason? What is it about Freemasonry that seems to frighten people? There's nothing there to be frightened of. We're from all levels of society, all professions and trades. The background of us is so diverse, and yet still people like that editorial person just cheap jibe.
To be fair, some of the singing at the festive boards are pretty frightening.
Well, that's one of our secrets. We can't sing.
From the horse's mouth.
So what do you think Freemasonry is going to look like in the future?
I think it's going to be a larger organisation we've got, probably slimmer in the number of lodges, more focused on specialist activities. We now have men in from 18 to whenever, and so I think it's a younger. So the average age of people coming from our membership campaign in 2023 was 42, which is down by about 18 years on the numbers coming in through the natural sponsorship route of other members inviting new people to join.
Obviously, we're an organisation steeped in 300 years plus of quite rigid tradition. Do you think that we need to change to entice new members and to keep them?
Yeah, it's change without losing your core principles.
Of course.
So people say to me, we don't do this or we don't do that. We never have. Well, Freemasonry in its early days in the 17 and 1800s wore periwigs and gaiters and silver buckled shoes. But we're not doing that anymore. We absolutely. We wear the garb of our day. So we are changing. And we shouldn't resist change in any organisation. And we change for the better so long as you keep the core principles of any organisation. And our core principles of respect and dignity are still going to be there, of honesty. The young people that are coming in want a different organisation. They've come out to enjoy themselves. They've come out probably for not as long as we have done through the 70s and 80s. So lodges starting at 6 o'clock and ending at 10:30 and 11 o'clock could just be too long for some of the younger ones. Struggling because we have all strata of society, not everyone can get away for a 6 o'clock start, go home, change and come out again. So I encourage lodges to look at that and maybe to start at 6:30 and to be very slick in what we do both in the lodge for our meetings and at our festive board so people can get home in a decent time to go to work the next day and see their family.
We mentioned it briefly at the start of the podcast, the mantra at the moment about one organisation, one journey.
Yes.
About Royal Arch being the 4th degree.
Well, it's central to the message we're sending out from the province, from the executives of Royal Arch and Craft. We now have one executive meeting together. We have one strategy that's being developed for the province, both sides of the organisation. It's ensuring that when you join, you're not just told that there are 3 degrees in Freemasonry. There are actually 4 degrees in Freemasonry, but the 4th one is taken in a chapter, and explaining why that is. It's historical why the 4th degree is taken in a chapter, which we don't have time to go into. But people need to understand that when they join. And at the moment, about 40% of our Masons go through to chapter, and that needs to be increased. What are we doing about it? Well, we're ensuring that people understand that right from the start. So the 405 present members of the Norfolk Blues will have had that explained to them when they joined, rather than myself. I knew nothing about chapter until I'd been in for 2 years and someone said, oh, you ought to join chapter.
I don't know what it is with the brethren, and I'm using my own lodge as an example here. There seems to be quite a lot of hesitancy when you say to a Master Mason, have you thought about joining chapter? There's a lot of umming and erring going on. What would you say to somebody who's not quite sure?
Well, I'd have to unpack it to say why. So, yes, it is an extra night. Yes, it is some more regalia. Yes, it is a bit more commitment. But I say this completes your core Masonry. Many Masons join our companion orders, which I applaud, but they ought to join chapter first so that the core journey is completed before they go on to other opportunities that are provided through Masonry. And chapter's a colourful organisation that really is so different from a lodge. I chose to join a chapter not associated with any of my lodges. So I met a whole range of people that I didn't know before. So I've got 2 sets of friends.
Richard, thank you very much for your time today.
Pleasure.
As our first guest on the podcast. And everybody who takes part in the podcast, we will be presenting with From the Horse's Mouth mug, which is very, very beautiful. Thanks to Tracy Fussell for putting this together. So I'm going to present you with the mug.
I'm delighted to receive your mug From the Horse's Mouth and to be the first recipient of it. And I hope all the guests that follow me are as proud to have that in their study as I will be. So thank you very much. It proudly says, one journey, one organisation. I applaud everyone to get that mantra into their minds.
Provincial Grandmaster. As always, it's been a real pleasure chatting.
And a pleasure chatting to you.
The Norfolk Freemasonry Podcast.
I hope you've enjoyed the very first episode of From the Horse's Mouth, the Norfolk Freemasonry podcast. Next month, we're going to be delving into the world of minutes and summonses and, dare I say, Hermes, as we catch up with Provincial Grand Secretary Graham Kynock and Provincial Scribee John Parfitt as they tell us how they keep the province running smoothly. Before we go, I'd just like to say thank you to 2 familiar names who've been working hard behind the scenes over the past few months to make this podcast happen. Assistant Provincial Grandmaster Robin Hawes and Provincial Learning and Development Officer Tracy Fussell. And of course, not forgetting my producer Dobbin. And if you do drop by the studio, he's rather partial to a sugar lump or 2.
From the Horse's Mouth, the Norfolk Freemasonry Podcast.